I'm not so much stylistically. I'm not changing from movie to movie that much. I mean, I'm evolving the style. Basically, starting with Justice League War, we're creating an internal cohesive continuity with most of our movies. They're not adaptations of the comic books the way we used to do, like strict one-to-one attempts at an adaptation. They're trying to weave their own internal continuity. So stylistically, they need to be consistent. So the style you'll see in Justice League War is the basic same style that you'll see in Son of Batman and now in Throne of Atlantis, because they all have to hook up. But yeah, I'm evolving and adapting, stuff. You always try to adjust. If you see stuff that's working really well, you want to emphasize that more. If you see stuff in the animation that maybe doesn't play as well, then you make adjustments as far as that stuff. But yeah, I'm just trying to come up with something that looks really cool, that the animators can wrap their heads around, something that a style that we can all draw well in, because there's hundreds of hands at work that have to work within the limitations and the rules of this particular aesthetic or style. I'm always trying to come up with something that's cool and functional, as the basis of that.
Do you have to keep the characters the iconic characters a certain way, though, so that the people that aren't in the comics and aren't in the movies maybe just can buy it off the shelf? Parents recognize it. That's a Superman movie. That's a Batman movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of that work, I don't want to downplay what I do or what we do, but a lot of that work is already done for you. I mean, everybody recognizes, the S and the Batman symbol and the ears and the silhouettes, of a character like Batman is unmistakable. So, we are working with these icons, and so you don't really tamper with them too much. You have to come up with something that's like, it's faithful to what's been done before. You put your own, particular spin on it, but you don't mess with classics. You know what I mean? They have to be recognizable. I don't know that part's necessarily a challenge. I think it's intuitive. I think it's instinctive for most artists. It's always a thrill to work on these characters, so you don't want to just come in and, let me veer too far, away from the traditions, because my analogy's always been that you're tending somebody else's garden to a certain degree. You're coming in and you're making sure to prune the leaves and mow the lawn and make sure everything's pretty, because there's going to be another generation of guys coming in after you and you don't want to leave a mess for them. You know what I mean?
Was there more wiggle? I'm sorry. Was there more wiggle room with a character like Aquaman that isn't?
He's so iconic as well and so well established that. I looked at what's being done with him right now in the new 52 comics, which, again, while we're not doing straight adaptations, we're creating a universe that's sort of parallel to that. So I looked at what Jim Lee had done and, drew something that I felt was, pretty faithful to that and fit right in with what we're doing. I don't. Some characters are harder than others. He's a character who's been downplayed a lot and looked at as not as good as some of the. I think that's completely absurd. It actually makes my job a little easier because, if people have messed with the template and drawn, weird versions of him in the past, like, they already took it to the extreme that you don't want to go. You already know what not to do. I mean, there are certain looks that just don't work for him. So I try to go for a classic take, and that's always going to work better.
What about for a less iconic character like Orm? What was the challenge behind designing him?
Orm is cool. The villains are always cool to do. You have the most fun with the villains. I think they have more latitude. The characters like Superman and Wonder Woman are the hardest to do. They have the smallest strike zone. You have to really be real considerate of the traditions. But the villains, they play to like more pushed silhouettes or more, extreme takes. Something that and you can really push the idea. He was fun to draw, and his character's so. You really love to hate him in this movie. He's great. He's just this like classic archetypal, villain, and he's played so well by our voice actor Sam Ripple that he was just a ton of. I just had a blast playing it.
Is it fair to assume there's a scene where you have to design numerous great white sharks?
Yeah, we have a lot of that stuff. That's always a challenge. The volume of stuff you have to consider when you're doing these films. We have a limited budget, but we're trying to create something on an epic scale that's going to be, really a spectacle. These are big action set pieces and stuff, and creating all the sea life. I mean, when you do Atlantis, you're always creating two worlds, because the story usually is not just Atlantis. So it's the surface world, and which is Aquaman's the duality of his character. So we're always going to have to do both. And there's a lot of big crowds. There's huge armies and a lot of stuff on screen at once. So volume is always challenging in the time frame that we have as far as covering all bases.
I know you obviously can't reveal, but did you have the opportunity to design any new familiar faces that we're going to see in this movie? You can't obviously specify if there will be a cameo from someone, but
yeah, new but familiar. That's interesting. I've designed most of the iconic or classic, well-known DC characters like so many times at this point for different productions.
Like, for example, Son of Batman had Killer Croc.
Right. Yeah. I can't think of any like cameos. I mean, we got the classic Aquaman cast in here. Sure. We got Mira, who I think is more badass in this movie than she's ever been. I mean, when we've done her in the past, or at least for me, the projects I've worked on, she's always the queen. But this is basically Aquaman Begins, if you will. So she plays a different role in this, and she's not the queen yet, but she's super badass and super cool. We got Black Manta in there. And, the basic cast of the Aquaman lore is so cool and so fun to play with. That we got all of the classic Aquaman cast.
How was it? How was it designing Black Manta? Because that's a character where he can either look really goofy or really badass. Like, it's tough to get a balance with him. Yeah, I mean, he's tough, for me, he's always been one of the cooler villains. Like, I always loved his silhouette, so you have to have that. He's got that awesome, his theme is really cool. That's what I look for in characters. Like, some characters are easier than others because, they have a really powerful theme, and his is really cool. So, we definitely, I love the Alex Toth Super Friends design. I mean, that's a lot of people, it might seem absurd. He's got this giant, fish bowl on his head or whatever. But I think it's cool. And so I'm always trying to harken back to the classics, but do my own take. I mean, now, modern sensibilities, we tech it out a little bit more, but he's still a guy in a wetsuit, essentially, like a body glove, neoprene, but he's got, the awesome technology behind him and stuff. So there's always new influences you can use in there. Plus, those old designs are, the limitations of technology predicate what you could, add to them. So, they had more limitations than we do. I mean, we still have to consider our budget, but we can play a little bit more with the tech and add a little more detail and stuff. So, yeah, he was fun. I always have fun when I'm doing those characters. Such a big story in the New 52.
Yes.
Throne of Atlantis is easily one of the best stories from the New 52.
One of the big arcs.
So, I mean, how do you tiptoe that line of giving fans what they want and also, straying away from it, giving them something new?
Well, it's always about story. You got to tell a good story, and you got to be clear and concise and interesting. The story of the comic series is not the story in the movie because we have a different character of Aquaman. We didn't introduce Aquaman in issue 4 of the Justice League like he got introduced in War. So we don't have that guy. We have Arthur Curry, who doesn't know that he's this guy, has not taken on the mantle of Aquaman yet. So it's a very different story. It's a different guy. He goes from being very lost. He grows up in this lighthouse with his father on the cove, and he's drawn to the water, but he doesn't know his heritage with the water. So he's a very lost character. And then all these sort of things happen to bring him into the secret of Atlantis. And they're like, great, you're a guy, come help us, come lead us. And he's like, whoa, I don't want any of this. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And then it's about a guy having to step up to become a hero. So we're already off the rails from the very beginning. And then in terms of the big cinematic action, that's all in there. Like, we do that in spades. So that's there. What else?
I was gonna say, he mentioned before that there might have been an appearance of Black Manta. Now, in what capacity are we gonna see the event that causes him to go?
At the time, we see Black Manta as Black Manta. We make reference to the event, and that is part of the backstory of why he is, why he has a connection to the Atlanteans. But we don't get, we're not privy to that event. But at this point, Black Manta is a cherished advisor of Orm. Yeah. He's the Iago to Orm's Othello, whispering in his ear.
It was late to write Ocean Master or Orm. How was that?
It's awesome. He's a great character. It was really like, there's some Game of Thrones stuff. I mean, it's all big, it's Shakespearean. The Atlanteans were incredibly fun to be able to write because it's all just big in motion, because it's a family that's trying to rule. And here's what I also like. Nobody's wrong. Like, the Queen's not wrong for trying to protect her people. Orm is not wrong for wanting to avenge his father. These people, this is all very relatable, smart stuff. And I really like it when villains have points that you can get behind. When they're not out of the blue. It's like, I want to control the world. He's not a mustache twirler. He's big and he's loud and he's aggressive, but he's not wrong. Which I thought was really interesting and something I really wanted to make clear with that character. Again, he doesn't become Ocean Master really until the end, you know? I mean, he's a lost prince for a long time, struggling to find his voice.
How long has Throne and Atlantis been in the works? Because obviously when Justice League War was announced, obviously you saw some of the reaction online. Why is Shazam here instead of Aquaman?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty certain at that point you were saying, well, you know, just wait and see what happens.
It was in the works way before we finished War. Yeah, they had a plan, which is how we were able to do a tag at the end to sort of hint at where we were going. Yeah, which I think is always really fun. But it's our to be continued. You know, it's our
credit scene?
Huh?
Will this have a credit scene?
There was one in the script.
Fair enough.
I don't know if it's actually in there.
Why did you guys decide to have the origin of Aquaman sort of as well as this the Storm of Atlantis, the War of Atlantis story, whatever, in the same thing?
You know, they came to me with that idea, and it actually worked really well with the story because we didn't introduce Aquaman in War, and it's always nice to have a really grounded origin story because it's a new person's voice into the Justice League and a new experience. So this was where War was Cyborg's origin story. This is Aquaman's Justice origin story. And we get to focus on Arthur Curry in a way that we really wouldn't be able to normally. So he really becomes the spotlight character for this movie, which is awesome. I mean, I don't think otherwise you're going to get an Aquaman movie just by himself. So it was nice to sort of be able to put him center stage in the Justice League.
Speaking of like the focus, like, is it hard as a screenwriter to try to give like sort of equal, because like it's a Justice League movie as well, so you have the other members like Flash, Green Lantern, Cyborg, etc., Superman, like to get all of them equal time in the story. Like, is that a difficult balance?
Yes. Yes. And the thing that my executive, Alan Burnett, at Warner Brothers Animation basically says is you don't have to give everybody equal time. Everybody needs good character moments, but not everyone gets equal time in every movie. A couple of people got short-shrifted a little bit in War. I wanted to give them a little bit more time in this one. You know, Flash gets a slightly larger role than he got to play in War, which is cool, because I like writing Flash, and he's a fun character. So, absolutely, that is a huge challenge to give everybody good, fun, strong character moments. But it's always something that I strive to do as a fan and as a writer.
Now, when you were writing it, first off, what was it like working with some of the actors who were a bit more, not so much new, but unfamiliar to a lot of the voice acting, especially the DC Nation, like, you know, Sam Witwer or even Rosario Dawson? When you were writing that, did you, like, well, you didn't know that they were at cast, but like, how is it working with them to kind of get them acclimated to it?
It's amazing. I mean, I'm always shocked who's a fan and who's a fan of the material. You know, and come in either reading the comics or studied up on the characters, and so it's always really fun to have people come in and you know, Jerry O'Connell is like, I'm a huge Superman fan. Or, you know, Nathan Fillion, who walks in with a Green Lantern shirt on. Or, you know, Christopher Gorham, who wears a Flash t-shirt at every record. So these people are really into it, and they're fans, and they're super excited about getting to do this stuff as well. So I'm there to help and answer any questions, and but they really like doing the research.
Were there any in particular? That when you heard they were cast, were like, yes, like that's who you were?
It was super exciting to have Nathan come back to do Green Lantern, because that's a really neat thing. As much as I love Justin Kirk, humor-wise in War. It was interesting to have him come back. I love Jason O'Mara as Batman. Jason O'Mara is great and just puts his heart and soul into it. And so it was cool to come back. And everyone who came back to do the character again was really cool because they were super excited about it. So that was really neat. Matt just brought so much enthusiasm to Arthur and was just super excited to do it. And so it was a real vibrant, young, angry Arthur. And that was really neat.
Since this is the same timeline as Justice League War, will we see a decent amount of plot progression with Superman and Wonder Woman on top of everything else?
Yes, and that will get a little more complicated as a certain intrepid reporter shows up on a date between Clark Kent and Diana Prince and makes things a little more complicated for Superman.
I wonder who that could be.
Yeah. That's my time, guys. Thank you so much.
Aquaman.
Does he sit in a diner and eat fish and chips?
I wish. That would have been good. We only had 70 minutes there.
All right. So, how heavily did you guys pull from Jeff Johns' work as a character for this one?
I'd say it's about 75% of the graphic novel. But the reason it's only 75% is because Jeff suggested to us making an Aquaman origin story, because the graphic novel starts with him already in the Justice League and already King of Atlantis, and even though the New 52 was supposed to be a start over, he's been Aquaman for probably 5 years already or something. I mean, it's very status quo. So we wanted to show the audience Aquaman from the beginning. How did he become Aquaman? How did he meet Mira? How did he become king? And then how he joined the Justice League. So that part of the story is a little different. Although we used the flashbacks that were in the other connected books that came out with Throne. There were flashbacks to Aquaman's origin in those books, and we used those as our flashback, or not our flashback, but as the start of our movie. So pretty much it is all in tune with what Jeff wrote, or set up in the Aquaman book and in the Justice League book.
I didn't get a chance to ask Andrea Romano about this before, but what was it like working with some of the newer, fresher actors as opposed to like the veterans, like, you know, Kevin Conroy or Mark Hamill?
Well, with these, you know, we cast them a little differently, and you know, we tend to cast actors who are on television or who have a live action presence, and so it's always interesting. And some, you know, it's not all of them always work out, but luckily this cast was really good and had done animation before. So I mean, Matt and Sam had been on Clone Wars, so you know, it's the best pedigree you can have. So it was good. It was good, and we, you know, Andrea always likes to mix it up with actors, live action actors who've done television work, along with established voice actors. So it kind of fills out the cast in a strong way. You know, and you get surprising things from people who haven't voiced acted. and then you get the old, the workhorses, the guys who are really professional voice actors. They can come in and do the thing they do, and it's a nice balance.
How long does it take to complete? Or how long did it take to produce?
Let's see, what year is this?
2014.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. So this is coming out in January. About a year and a half.
Oh wow.
Well, we finished it. It's been finished for a few months actually, but they don't release it. They don't release it when we finish it. They hold on to it for whenever it works best for them to sell it. So yeah, but about from concept to storyboarding to character design to recording. That's not in the right order, but I'm just off the top of my head. And then it's overseas getting animated for 5 to 6 months, or 4 to 5 months, and then it comes back and we have to edit it and redo all the dialogue in places. It's a long process. It's about a year and a half till it's completely done. And if you've that's taking the time they do the covers, which we don't do at Warner Brothers ourselves. Like the animators don't do the covers. We don't, we hand it over to them and they sell it. We just make it. So, all right.
I know for a while DC had like a sort of consolidated animated universe with the Bruce Timm animation.
Yeah.
For a while, and then they sort of moved away from that to having separate movies, and each movie was its own separate continuity and thing. Why the shift back to the consistent continuity between films?
Well, first of all, Bruce's thing, it wasn't by design. Like he did Batman the Animated Series, and it was a hit. And they did, he was supposed to do Freakazoid next, not Superman. Superman came when Freakazoid got changed from what he originally conceived of. So then we were doing Superman, and the thinking back then was like, we do Batman is real. But we want to keep it real, and then Superman came along. It's like, well, I guess we have to do super stuff now. So then it kind of changed the world. Now you have Batman and Superman existing, and then we did Batman Beyond, and that came about because the toy company said we need another Batman, and it's just kind of. And then Justice League came about because we were out of work, and Bruce called up Cartoon Network and said, "Hey, you want a Justice League show?" This is without knowing we were going to make it in continuity at all. And in fact, the first season of Justice League was not supposed to be in continuity. So the idea of a universe wasn't by design. It happened. It just evolved. And we used Justice League Unlimited to tie it all together. But it wasn't structured initially. Like, Bruce didn't wake up and say, I think I want to do 5 shows in continuity. It didn't happen that way. We never assumed we're going to do any show beyond the show we're doing. But anyway, what we're doing now came about, quite frankly, because we're biting off Marvel. Marvel movies are great. They're all connected. It's kind of a duh. Why aren't we doing that? Comics are like that. Marvel proved that you can do movies that way. We already knew you could, but that wasn't the popular belief in the higher-ups. But now the higher-ups have gotten a clue because Marvel has made a gazillion bucks off it. So now we're doing it. And I'm happy because I like working on series work. I like comics. I like working on TV series that you can build a character along. And so doing this as a series of interconnected movies to me is great.
Going on with the continuity of the shared universe now with the animated movies, going from war straight to the point of Atlantis, do you guys plan on following the arcs one by one, or maybe jumping around?
No, I don't think after this we're gonna. What we were doing was never to mimic the comic book New 52. We basically did our version of the New 52. Meaning we were starting fresh, starting a new universe. But no, as we move on, we may adapt stories that happened before the New 52. We'll do our own stories. you know, it'll be different. No one will know what to expect because they're going to be original stories or stories inspired by, but they won't be true adaptations.
And when can we maybe see a Superman solo film, or maybe Green Arrow film?
Both of those are being discussed. I'd love to do something like that.
Before you go, what are the chances of us seeing a Crisis film? If
I don't
we're going
know,
in continuity, how about a Crisis film?
Only guys our age would know what the hell Crisis is. But maybe. I don't know. I'd never say never.
Gotta take him away, fellas. On that over here in a minute.
The most obvious question, I'm sure you've been asked all day. How does it feel to take on the mantle of Aquaman?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's been fun. It's been a new thing for me because, to be quite honest, I wasn't real familiar with Aquaman or you know, the comics of the past or anything like that. So it's been a new venture for me, and I love being in this kind of world. I love being in the superhero world. I think it's fun. Bottom line, it's fun. It's imaginative. It's exciting. It's a rush. So to be a part of it and to kind of get to bring this to life, especially when I feel like this is a time when, a bit of a crossroads in a way that we have an opportunity to kind of make Aquaman cool, in a way, because he's kind of been downplayed, I guess, in the last couple of decades, maybe, of being like not quite as cool as like Superman or something. So I think we have a unique opportunity to try to do that. Yeah, it's been a fun challenge.
Hi, Tatiana from Fanbros. So you mentioned that you didn't really have background on Aquaman or any of the comics. So what did you do to kind of get a character discovery with that?
Well, this is his origin story. It's the birth of Aquaman. So really, for me, my approach is that this movie is less about Aquaman. It's more about Arthur Curry and who he is as a person. And so really, it's more about less about what's Aquaman done in the past and who has he battled, and it was just more about like figuring out who Arthur Curry is at this point in his life and his internal struggles, and just really I went on our script because that's all I really needed to go on, right? Because at this point there's nothing else besides what we have in this script, so that's kind of more how I approached it.
And going from like Clone Wars to this, what was it like shifting from one extreme fandom to another?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, Star Wars fans are the greatest, man. But it's been fun. But rather than it's actually been easier than difficult. Arthur Curry and Anakin are pretty similar in a lot of ways. They're both dealing with their inner demons. They're both trying to figure out what world they want to be a part of. And Anakin, in the same way that Arthur Curry is being approached for the Justice League and kind of how to rein in his power and use it for good, Anakin's also, the Council's also trying to do the same thing, and he's just not even sure he wants to be there, and if they're even right in their thinking, and it's the same kind of deal with Arthur Curry at this point. I think he's trying to figure out who he is as a person and where does he go. He's dealt with some tragedies. We pick up this film and he's dealing with some stuff. I feel like they're similar in a lot of ways, more than different.
I have to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Anakin Skywalker versus Aquaman. How's that going down?
Of course you would have to ask me that. Oh man, I don't know. I think Aquaman seems a lot stronger than Anakin. It's difficult when you gotta battle someone who has the Force on their side, though, because I feel like limits are. There really is no limit when you have the Force. I don't know. I can't even say that. I feel like you're setting me up here. No matter what I say, like some group of fans are not gonna like what I say. So.
Of course, it all depends on the environment.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. That's a good answer. It depends.
Fair enough.
So I know you said you've never really, you weren't really into Aquaman before this. Are you an avid comic reader at all, or have you been into comics?
No, I really wasn't. I mean, honestly, I was not. I had picked up a few comics just as a kid because you see them out and they look cool. But I can't tell you that I was an avid reader of comics or really kept up with any of the, storylines in comics or anything. I guess when I was a kid, I don't know. I had access to Batman the Animated Series after school every day, and I was watching Ninja Turtles and I was watching X-Men, so I don't know why I never really got into comics. I guess I had that stuff and I had my action figures, so I guess maybe that was enough. I don't know.
That's fair.
Do you think this new retelling of the origin of Aquaman will kind of increase the general reception or the public reception of Aquaman at large? Because a lot of people, maybe the general layman, they think Aquaman and they don't have the highest regard.
Yeah, sure.
So do you think like this will maybe make it better at some point?
I hope so. I mean, I feel like I love seeing superhero origin stories because in the past, you know, let's just take like the late 80s Batmans, for example. Like you see Batman, but it's fun and it's Batman. But now we kind of see this current trend of seeing these superheroes more as people and more as with human emotions and where do they come from and how did Wolverine become Wolverine and how did Batman become Batman? Like what has he been through to be angry like that, you know? So I hope that's what this is going to do with Aquaman. I think that this type of fan group, it's a cop-out just to say he's a superhero, like him. It's a cop-out now. Like, we're too smart for that. We want to know what's, like, how, why. And, you know, origin stories tend to do that for me as a fan. And so I hope this kind of does it for fans of Aquaman who are on the fence.
But this movie's that good.
I think so. I mean, I think we get to see where he comes from and how he develops. And, you know, I feel like people get to know that character and care about the character more. And it's like that in any movie. You like 5 minutes in, if someone dies, you don't really care. But like, if you know who that character is and you know that character's struggles and what they've been through, and you get a feel for them, and you know you want to see them succeed. Same thing.
For people who haven't read the original Aquaman comics, just kind of go over like what kind of emotions Arthur's going through, like from the beginning of the film to the end. Like what kind of arc does he have?
Yeah, well, he's got a pretty major arc. I mean, we pick up the film. I don't want to like give too much away, but we pick up the film with he's pretty much in the darkest place that you can be. I mean, he's dealt with some tragedies and losses, and he's just in a dark place. He's had things happening to him, you know, the strength and things that he can't explain, and of course he doesn't know that he's from an underwater world yet. So he's got those questions about his own identity. He's dealing with that. As I mentioned, he's dealing with the loss and the struggle. He's just in a bad, dark place. So and that's where we pick it up, and throughout the film, we see him get introduced to who he really is, and get introduced to some of the people in his life, and then it kind of goes on an arc from there. And by the end of the film, of course, the Justice League comes in, and we kind of see him become Aquaman. But really, I think he's at this point. He's at the end of the film. He's accepting the power, and like trying to figure out, okay, I am who they're saying that I am. How do I take this into the future, and how do I, you know, be noble with this type of power? But I'm excited to see actually what happens after this film too. How is he Aquaman? Like, what's he doing as Aquaman Monday through Friday? You know, you kind of saw how he got there, but now I want to see what he's going to do with it. So, I mean, more or less, that's kind of his arc, is from that terrible place into accepting a responsibility and I don't know. I guess making that part of. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think when someone has a responsibility, they all of a sudden want to rise to the occasion. Mm-hmm. So I think by the end of the film, we're starting to see that. So, it was a long-winded answer. Sorry. We got to cut like half of that out. This guy's just going on and on about God knows what.
So in the Justice League, there's all these different dynamics between the heroes.
Mm-hmm.
When you finally meet them, is there a specific hero that you really liked interacting with? Voice actor, obviously, but like a certain character that you had a lot of fun kind of bantering with?
Yeah, so actually, he doesn't have a whole lot of that banter yet with the Justice League. Towards the end of the film, we're just kind of seeing him in the midst of the Justice League. You know, so really, there's not a lot of that. So I'm hoping that we'll see more of that in the subsequent films. That hopefully there will be. I actually don't know. They haven't told me. But yeah, it doesn't really get into any like interrelationships within the Justice League yet. Okay. Just as a whole.
Sure.
Now this could risk more public perception of stepping the role. But what was your perception of Aquaman before it? What did you ever think of the character?
Well, like I mentioned, to be honest, I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of Aquaman. I mean, of course, I knew who Aquaman was, but I didn't know why some people don't like him or any of that sort of stuff. To be honest, the only thing that I really knew about Aquaman is that he was hated on in Entourage. And then, you know, of course, once I got this, I became a lot more knowledgeable about the history of the character and what's been happening with him and fan perception and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why maybe he's not regarded as one of the coolest, because he talks to fish, I guess, is kind of the consensus. And what else does he do? But I don't know. I think you'll see. He's pretty badass in this film.
Are you going to get Vincent Chase with the first money?
I hope so. I hope so. Or Jason Momoa, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
With the new casting. I was saying, what an interesting choice for that. But hopefully, I'm sure they'll do something awesome with it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
He needs a code name.
Well, online they're calling him Aquaman.
Hate that.
Aquaman it is.